هم يطلعوا لهم الآن للهوست.
فتحته. السلام عليكم. الصوت واضح؟ أستاذة نورة.
واضح. مرحبا أستاذ سلوى.
أهلين، حياك الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يسعدنا أن نلتقي معكم بثاني ورشة تحت عنوان التقييم النقدي للمقال العلمي تقدمها لنا مشكورة الأستاذة نورة بنت عبد الرحمن الحربي، ممارس تمريض متقدم ماجستير علوم التمريض المتقدمة من جامعة دبلن إيرلندا وجامعة الأميرة نورة بالرياض. حالياً تشغل منصب رئيسة قسم التعليم والتدريب التمريضي بمستشفى الرس بتجمع القصيم الصحي، وهي عضوة في لجنة البحوث بالمستشفى وقائدة للتغيير لبرنامج أداء الصحة بمستشفى الرس العام. ورشتنا سوف تستغرق حوالي 3 ساعات. إذا أردتم المداخلة الصوتية يمكنكم رفع اليد وكتابة الأسئلة بالشات. نتمنى لكم وقت ممتع ومفيد. تفضل أستاذة نورة.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته، وأسعد الله مساءكم بكل خير. كل الشكر والتقدير للقائمين على هذا المؤتمر والاستضافة الكريمة. نقدر جهودكم وإلى الأمام بإذن الله. معكم نور عبد الرحمن الحربي, Advanced Nurse Practitioner, Master in Advanced Nursing Practice from Dublin City University and PEM University in Riyadh. Today I'm going to present to you the critical appraisal of the research tools and techniques that we are using to critically appraise the research, to look for the evidence and put them into practice. And hopefully that you will enjoy this session. The time limit is not enough to discuss every aspect of this critical appraisal techniques, but hopefully you will gain new information and knowledge from this workshop. So as a beginning, we are going to discuss the outlines of this workshop. First of all, we are going to have a look and the meaning of what critical appraisal is about, and why we are doing this critical appraisal. What is the benefit from doing the critical appraisal of an article? It is already done, the research have done, the data collection, discussion and everything. Why we are going back and critique the paper of a research. And then when we should do the critical appraisal, what are the situations that we are going to do this critical appraisal? In what conditions, what it indicates, and how to critique an article. The critical appraisal and research is very essential. Why and how we are doing this? Is it randomly or systematically? We are going to have a look in this one. And then we are going to have a look also in the hierarchy of evidence and what do I need to look for in that base. And then in this workshop, we are going to have a fast critique of 2 qualitative and quantitative paper. We are going to practice in 2 sessions, and we are going to divide you in 2 groups and do this critical appraisal in action. So first of all, once I say a critical appraisal, what is the first thing coming to your mind? What is critical appraisal? You can answer in the chat box. Give me a clue. What do you know about the critical appraisal? Anyone can answer in the chat box. Okay, so critical appraisal is the process of carefully and systematically analyzing the research paper to judge its trustworthiness and its value, generalizability, and relevance in particular context. What does that mean? Once I do, for example, an improvement project, and I need to study the concepts of this project, how cost it will affect, and what is the effect of this project into actual or into the practice. So I have to do this process of collecting the articles related to this aspect and critically appraising them to look for the evidence, the based evidence, to put them into practice. So the critical appraisal, in another word, is the process of systematically examining the research evidence to assess its validity, result, and relevance before using it into an informed decision. Why it's important to do the appraisal for an article before putting them into practice. Critical appraisal is an essential step in the process of putting research into practice. Why is that? Asking questions about an article research methodology, inspecting the articles and the data collection and analysis method, and evaluating how its findings are presented will help you to determine whether that article conclusion should influence to a practical decision making. So mainly we are going to critically appraise for two reasons. The first one, as we said, to critically evaluate the research evidence. It is crucial to critically evaluate the research evidence in order to facilitate evidence-based practice, which is the use of the best evidence available to guide the decision-making and program decision. Once you decided to do something, to do a new initiative, you have to study every aspect of this initiative. And in order to do that, you will collect the articles, the previous studies, the previous experimental involvement of this subject that you are looking for. And then look for the evidence in these articles. In doing that, you have to critically appraise to include the good articles and exclude the bad ones. And then to distinguish the best available evidence from within a large body of research, as we said. The term best evidence emphasizes the fact that it's the quality, not the quantity of evidence that the primary significance. So the most significant thing for us is to look for quality of the research, not the quantity. We don't want to look for a large number of research studying this subject. No, we are looking for the higher quality within these articles. Why evidence-based? What do you know about the evidence-based? You can share your knowledge in the chat box if you are going to do so. Using a best evidence approach allows you to first retrieve the reliable and up-to-date information. You will look for the up-to-date information and articles studying for a specific disease or specific procedure, and the randomized control trials up-to-date, and then about which intervention do and do not work for the particular health topic. And then control the amount of the literature that you will need to analyze. And then you will feel confident that the health decision making is based on the best of the best information available for the particular topic. So at the end of your critical appraisal and studying all these articles, you will feel more confident about your decisions and your improvement project, for example. So when we will do the critical appraisal, what are the situations that we are going to do the critical appraisal, when we will gather these articles and study and do all these steps? What are the indications? Any idea? We have 38 participants nearly. So anyone have any idea when we should do the critical appraise? What are the situations that require you to do the critical appraisal? بمعنى آخر، ما هي الحالات التي تتطلب منك دراسة المقالات العلمية والبحث عن معلومة معينة؟ Verification. Okay. So let's have a look. The first situation when you are conducting a literature review for a grant proposal for a new project. You are going to do a new proposal or a new research or a new project, improvement project. So you are doing the literature review to gather all these articles related to your subject or related to your improvement project. So in this situation, you have to critically appraise these articles and look for the highest quality of these articles and use them in your literature review. Of course, you will think about your future proposal or future research paper that it will be critiqued by someone else. So you have to look for the highest quality of the articles that you are going to use. The second situation in evaluating the effectiveness, the cost and benefit of health programs and interventions. If you are starting new programs in the healthcare facilities that you are working in, starting new initiative, you have to study the effectiveness, the cost of this program. Is it worth it to do this program and to start all these steps and process? You have to study them through these articles and look for the evidence as well. And then establishing new innovative in the healthcare programs also to set the right runway while implementing the health policies or to close the gap in the implementation in another word. And in health practice decision-making, and usually this decision-making will be taken by a senior level of management. So all these situations, we are doing the critical appraisal and then. Now we will come to how to critically appraise a research article. The way in which you critique research evidence will differ slightly according to the type of the study that you are appraising. Like, for example, the randomized control trials is different from systematic reviews, from observational studies, and meta-analysis. The systematic reviews are a reliable source of evidence since they are appraised and summarize numerous of primary research study. It is the highest level of the pyramid of the evidence. Systematic reviews has been critiqued and critically appraised by someone else and put in front of you for putting them into a decision or take a decision and put them into practice. So the systematic reviews are at the top of the level of evidence. However, they are not available in every health topic. So they are not covering every health care topic that we are encountering now. If a systematic review related to your topic has not been conducted, you will have to look at other types of study in order to find the best available evidence. So now we will go down to the pyramid and pick up another study design or study articles or whatever to appraise and look for the best evidence that we have, because it is not available in the systematic reviews. Once you have conducted a literature research and obtained full text of article, you can begin the critical appraisal process. So right away, once you collect and gather the articles that you are intended to study and include, for example, in your project or in your literature review, you can critique them right away. Consider the following questions to assess the quality of articles. So basically, we are going to answer this main 4 questions, and as a subtitle of these questions, we have another questions coming up. So mainly, we are looking if this article is relevant to the issue that I'm or the setting that I'm using. What are the author's conclusion? How confident can I be about the findings, and how can the result be applied to the health practice? So in the next following slides, we are going to discuss these 4 questions. Is it clear so far for you?
You can use the chat box.
Yes. Is it clear till now? Do you have any question? Thank you, Mr. Yasser. So the first 2 questions that we are going to answer, is this article relevant to my issue and setting? How we are going to answer this question? What are the particular elements that I'm looking for to answer this question? Is it relevant to my issue? I'm looking for improvement project. I'm starting a new initiative in my healthcare facility. So how I will know that this article that I picked is relevant to my issue? By answering few questions. First of all, you have to read the abstract of the article. Use the information found in the abstract to answer the questions. Usually the abstract contains all information that you need, and the good article and the good researcher is putting all available information and concise in this abstract. Are your issues discussed there? If you read the article and find the research question and discussion about your issue, so this article is relevant to you. What are the main findings of the research? You will find maybe in the last of the abstract the findings and the outcomes of the research. So is this outcomes relevant to your issue? Do you want to know more after reading this abstract? Do you want to continue reading this article? Do you feel curious about this article? You want to know how they collected the data and how they did the research design, how they chosen this design in particular, and why is that the population of this research? Do you want to continue or not? So you have to answer this question. And then after reading the abstract, was the research done in a similar setting that you have? Is this research done to a similar setting? It doesn't have to be the same exactly, but is it similar to your situation? And then the last question, does it address a related question? Even the research that covers your issue indirectly can be useful. And are there a reason to doubt the findings without reading the whole article? Do you feel unconfident about the findings, the reliability of the findings? Do you have any concern about it? So just ask yourself these few questions, and you will know if you are going to continue with this article or not. So we are still in the first question. Is this article relevant to my issue and setting? The second step is to read the introduction and the discussion section of the article. To further assess the relevance of a study, you will look to those sections of the research article which describe in more detail the objectives and the context of the study. The introduction and discussion section will help you to identify the key concepts, the goal, the subjects, and themes of the research. focus on the time, place, and circumstances of the population and the setting studied. How similar or different is the study population or setting to yours? Is differences likely to be matter in this issue or not? And then you are going to consult the method section. You will continue after the introduction and discussion. If you feel that this article is still relevant to your issue and to your setting, you will continue to the method section. What we can find there in the method section? The method section will give you a step-by-step description of exactly how the study was carried out, how this study was carried out through the population and the description of the study details and the method in how they approach this particular situation and population, and why is that. This section you should take a note of where the study was done, the site, on a site like facility, hospital, or whatever, at home, in administrative level setting, or what are other possible setting of this article or this study. And then from whom the data was collected. Is it a primary from the staff, patient, families, or is it a secondary from a database? And then how the data was collected. Is it by interview or focus group or questionnaire or survey or observations? So you will look for all these informations in the method section. It is very important that you will decide if you are going to continue with this article or not. So here we have the second question. As we said earlier, we have 4 questions. We have finished with the first one, and now we are going to the second question. What are the author's conclusion? What do we mean by that? So we will use this technique in order to know what is the author's conclusion. The first step is to compare. What we are going to compare? To compare the abstract to the discussion section. So the discussion section is more detailed and precise than the abstract, and will explain the limitation of the research and possible implication which are not mentioned in the abstract. Second, how are the results related to other research on the same topic? How these results are related to other researches and other topics discussed in other articles. What do we mean by that? In the discussion or the conclusion section, is there a review of how these results compare or construct? The researcher will discuss and compare the results that they got with another researcher. So you have to read the discussion section very carefully, and the conclusion as well. And then it will construct with the prior researches. If this report found something different from the previous research, then it is important to progress to the question 3 on appraising the reliability of the findings. In what the author conclusion, last step is to compare the raw data contained in the table with the results analyzed in the discussion and conclusion. Usually the articles are containing of tables that contains a data. So you are going to investigate this data and compare them with the discussion section. So are these results reported in the conclusion? Have you found these results on the table discussed in the conclusion, and consist with what is reported in the table? is the interpretation consist with the actual finding with, and they should be consistent. It's not always there, and it is not always found. You cannot find always the discussion discussing that. Some researchers, they will just represent the data in the tables, and they will go directly to the results in the discussion. So the third question is, how confident can I about these findings? To determine if the study findings are trustworthy, you will review the method section. There are 5 factors that influence the reliability of the research result. The first one is the completeness of the model that is analyzed, if there is a model used, of course. The second one, the quality and the relevance of the measures used to their relationship to the model. And then the quality of the data. The ability to control and differences between groups being compared. And then the appropriateness of the statistical methods that given the nature of the data generated. You are going to look for the way how they analyzed this data. And then finally, you will have the method. So by analyzing all these 5 elements, you are going to find out if you are confident about the findings in this article. So this is the first element. How complete is the model? First of all, what do we mean by the model? A model is a description of the relationship between dependent variables and the outcome with which it's believed to be associated. A model may also specify how the dependent and independent variables are conceptually related to one another. So the following questions will evaluate the completeness of the model. How complete is the model? The first question that we are going to ask, are all the relevant factors included in the research? So how to answer this question? By how complete, relevant is the theory? What is the theory that have been used in this article? There are plenty and several theories that every researcher is intended to use in their research. So what is the theory in this particular research that you are reading? Are important factors or variables left out of the theory? And are important theoretical factors accounted for to analyze? Or does the model explain the facts as you currently understand them? If not, you have to re-examine both the facts and your understanding of the theory. So the second question is, how important are the variables that may have been left out? There is an inclusion and exclusion criteria, and some variables are not taken in consideration. And why is that? And how important are these variables? Does the study take, for example, like socioeconomic status or other variables into the account in the reasonable way? Or does the study consider special contextual events, the study location or the patient characteristic that might influence the result? And are these omitted variables correlated with the important policy or program variables? And how would this affect the result if they excluded some variables? How it will affect the result of this research? And then how good are the measures? The measures that are used in this particular article, do the measures accurately reflect that the researcher was trying to measure the validity? or how clear and appropriate are these measures? Is it too broad or too narrow or ambiguous? So you have to look to these measures. Is it clear to you all these measures that they are indicated in the particular research? Are they actual measures or proxy measures? Are they done by the researcher himself or herself, or somebody did them? They delegated someone to do them. And then are these measures well established in either prior to the research or through a pilot testing by the researcher, or they just ad hoc in a particular purpose they did these measures? In another meaning is it unplanned measures or not? And then we will come to the data. How good is the data that is available in this research? Measures and the conclusions drawn from them. So they are only as good as the data used to construct them. Lots of missing data or a poor response rate can limit the reliability of the findings. So it is very important to inspect the data and see if they are reliable. Does the study adequately control the differences between the groups being compared? What do we mean by that? It means how similar or different are the groups being compared? If the groups are different, how would you expect the differences to influence the outcome being studied? And how have the researchers tried to control for these differences? And if so, if there is a risk selection bias, if there is a risk for bias in this research, how have the researcher addressed this? And note, there is also a host of other biases. So we have to look all these elements. And then the last one, are the statistical methods appropriate for this article? So what is the reason that the research was done? And is the sample large enough to produce the significant results? Is the effect size clinically or operationally relevant? Is there is a discussion and how the methods related to those used in another studies? So how can the results be applied to the healthcare practice? This is the last question that we are going to answer to see if this article is worthy or not to put in our practice. It is important to consider how the result of a study is realistically be integrated into a local practice. So the following question will be guiding you to assessment and the applicability of the study results. So first question is, how can the result be interpreted and applied to the health practice setting? Can I apply it to my program or policy? And then secondly, were all important health practice outcomes considered? And then are the benefits worth and the cost of the potential risk? So that's all for this question. And now we are going to discuss the hierarchy of evidence and look for the best articles that we are going to choose in our improvement project or in our proposal or in our research. Where we have to look for? First of all, we have to know how to look for this information. It is very important is to know what is the best database that we are going to use and how is the technique, how we are including the information and the keywords that we are going to use in order to select the best articles that we are going to critique and then use in our improvement projects. So as you can see here, this is the hierarchy of evidence or pyramid of evidence. So the level of evidence or hierarchy of evidence is the system used to rank the medical studies based on the quality and reliability of their design. Level of evidence are commonly depicted in a pyramid model that illustrate both the quality and the quantity of the available evidence. The higher the position on the pyramid is, the stronger. As we said earlier, the systematic reviews and the meta-analysis are the filtered information that have been already critiqued. The articles here are already investigated and critiques, and there is critical appraisal have been done for this article. So you will feel very confident to use them directly in your decision. But think that it is not available for all health practice topics. So if it is not available in the systematic review, then you will go down to the randomized or control studies or case controlled studies, and then look for your particular topic. So we are going to investigate the hierarchy of evidence one by one. First, the systematic reviews. So as we said earlier, the systematic reviews sensitize the result from all available studies of particular health topic, answering the specific research question by collecting and evaluating all research evidence that fits to the review's selection criteria. The most well-known collection of the systematic reviews that you can find in the Cochrane database of systematic review. So the Cochrane database is a website. It is a Cochrane library or Cochrane database that they have collected all systematic reviews together, and you have to only look for your topic and you will find a large collection of these articles have been studied and investigated. So the systematic review can include meta-analysis, which is the quantitative part of the systematic review, in which the statistical methods are applied to evaluate and synthesize the quantitative result from the multiple studies. Second, we will go to the randomized control trials or RCTs. They are prospective studies that measures the efficiency and intervention or treatment. Usually the subjects are randomly assigned to either an experimental or control group. The control group receives a placebo or sham intervention, like a fake intervention, and then the experimental group will receive the actual intervention, or like, for example, the treatment and the post-order procedure. So it is comparing two groups, and it must be also randomized to be reliable. And then the cohort study is a type of observational study, that meaning no intervention is taken among the subject or the participant of the study. It is also a type of longitudinal study in which the research subjects are followed over a period of time. A cohort study can be either prospective, which collects the new data over the time, or retrospective, that meaning that we are using the previous acquired data or the medical records. The case control study is another type of observational study. It's also a type of retrospective study. It means that we are using an acquired data or medical record, and which look backward in a time to assess an information. A case control study is compares people who have a specified condition or outcomes being studied. So what do we mean by filtered and unfiltered information? As we said, the systematic reviews and meta-analysis are filtered information. and the unfiltered information, the rest of the designs. So we'll have a quick look into that. The unfiltered or primary evidence, we call it a primary evidence. The unfiltered, it includes the original research studies that have been done in the by the researcher, the first researcher, including the randomized control. Excuse me. Sorry for this situation. So what we say here is that the unfiltered, the primary evidence taken from the original research studies, including the randomized controlled trials and the case control studies, they are often published in peer-reviewed. So somebody have in peer-reviewed journals. And then, however, these studies have not been subjected to additional analysis and review beyond that of the peer reviewers for each study. So aside from the journal's peer review, nobody has inspected or investigated these articles. That's why it is unfiltered information. In most cases, unfiltered level of evidence are difficult to apply in a clinical decision making. So we are not going to use them until we critically appraise them and see if they are applicable for our decision or not. So the filtered or secondary levels of evidence is the information that has been previously collected and aggregated by the expert analysis and review. Filtered level of evidence are placed above the unfiltered levels of evidence on the pyramid. For example, for the filtered levels, as we said, meta-analysis and systematic review. So what do we know about this? What is the conclusion of all this comparison? Why we are comparing them together? The filtered information appraises the quality of the study and recommend its application into practice. The critical appraisal of the individual articles has already been done for you, so which is a great time saver. Because the critical appraisal has been completed and filtered literature is appropriate to use into the clinical decision making. So in addition to that, to saving your time, this filtered literature will often provide a more definitive answer than individual research report. Example of that is, as we said, the Cochrane database, systematic reviews. We have also the PMG clinical evidence and the ACP journal club. Examples for the unfiltered information, you can find them in the, like for example, SNAIL database, EMBase, Midline, and PubMed. So now we will have a quick look to this. And before that, I'm going to post a link in the chat box. And please let me know if you are able to open these two articles that I have posted there. This is the link. I think it's going to the, okay, to everyone. I will post again now. Please check if you are able to open this link and see the two articles that we uploaded there for investigation. So we will continue with the critical appraisal of qualitative paper. First of all, we will look for the credibility of the article. What do we mean by that? Is the research giving a true picture of the reality of the participant's experience? And can you believe these results that you are reading in this article? So what are the strategies we are doing to do the credibility? So first you will look for the data collected over the prolonged period of time and the variety of this participant. Is there is any variation of the participant, like by age or by health condition or whatever. And then the well-established research method, and then the familiarity of the research with the setting, the competence of the researcher established, and the reflective field diary or the triangulation and variety of the research method of the investigator, honesty that encountered, like for example, did they include only the willing volunteers or participants, and then the participants involved in the analysis of the research and the view results. The second thing that we are looking in the qualitative research is the confirmability. Has the researcher attempted to limit the bias? Did they do something to limit the bias of their research? And then the dependability of the research. Would the result be similar if the study was repeated, and how consistent are the data and the findings? Would it be easy to repeat this research? And then finally, the transferability of the research. Can the research be transferred to another setting or not? And then critical appraisal of quantitative paper. In the quantitative paper, we are looking for the reliability, and then the internal validity and the external validity. So what do we mean by that? Validity in the quantitative research, we have internal and external. For the internal, does this research measure what it is supposed to be measuring? And then the external, can the results be applied to a wider population or not? Reliability is how constant are the measurements. Reliability concerned with the random one-off errors, whether the validity concerned with the systematic or constant error. So the strategies that we are using to check the internal validity is randomization. Randomization of the sample into a different group, like in our randomized controlled trials. Blinding, there is a patient, clinician, researcher, they are not aware about the group. Like if the patient is not aware of the intervention, where is the intervention has been done, we call this a single blindness. And then if the clinician don't know, it is a double. And if the researcher don't know also, it is a triple blindness or blinding of the intervention. So we will look for the similarity of the group at the baseline, and then look for the tables that compare the demographic details of the group and equal the treatment of the groups. And then you will see the power of analysis. And then we will check the low attrition. What do we mean by the low attrition? How many participants withdraw with this article? They didn't complete, or they didn't continue in participating in this particular article. So the strategies for the external validity, we are looking for the appropriate type of sampling strategy used. Is the sample size sufficient for the research? And everyone who started the study was accounted until the end of this study. And what did they use only the survey or interview or response? What is the response rate to this study? And then the strategies to check the reliability of the research. What has been done to ensure that the research is constant, standardized questionnaire, or they did pilot questionnaire, or they just bot checks. So this online article appraisal tools that are commonly used, the Agree instrument, it is available in this website. And then the clinical appraisal skill program tool, it is available in this website. And I would highly recommend the CASP critical appraisal tool. It contains plenty of checklists that you are using in your critically appraising an article. It contains all study designs. Almost all of them are available there. So for now, have you opened the link that I have sent to you? هل فتح معكم الرابط؟ بينت معكم الارتكلز أو لا؟ جاوبوا بالchat box please. There are two articles. One is qualitative and one is quantitative. So we are going to have a practice on these two articles. And there is a template also, a checklist. The critical evaluation of research paper. We have the RTC experimental study checklist from Tuskegee University. And we have another one, critical evaluation for research paper for the qualitative studies. Brilliant, good. So you can open them. So what do you think? I will give you 10 to 15 minutes to inspect these two articles. ناخذ 10 دقائق بشكل سريع نقرأ هذه الارتكلز. بعد كذا نعمل لها نقد تحليلي. أستاذة سلوى معي؟
أيوة تفضلي.
تمام، ناخذ 10 دقائق.
أوكي.
نقرأ المقالين. ممكن ننقسم على جروبين، جروب يقرأ الكواليتيتيف.
عندنا تقريبا الاتنديز 40، ممكن إذا حابين جروبين 20-20.
ممتاز. جروب على الكواليتيتيف وجروب على الكوانتيتيف، بس كيف نعرف إنه كل شخص اختار؟ رقم 1 كواليتيتيف، رقم 2 كوانتيتيف. بالشات بوكس ممكن.
الحين نعرف مين اللي اختار الارتكل 1 يكتب 1 والارتكل 2 بحيث تتوزعون بالتساوي. تمام. الأدرس وش اخترتوا؟
المطلوب بشكل سريع inspection على الارتكل، وفي معاكم هنا التشيك ليست تساعدكم بالأسئلة اللي راح تبحثون عنها بالضبط. على سبيل المثال في بالفراغ اللي أمام الأسئلة تحبون قدر الإمكان إذا ممكن الفايندينجز اللي حصلتوها. بعد كذا راح نعمل التحليل مع بعض ونشوف هل توصلتم إلى نفس الريزلت اللي راح نوصلها مع بعض أو لا. بالبداية راح أخليكم أنتم تحللون أو تعملون النقد التحليلي للآرتيكل، بعد كذا نعمل سوا. مرحبا، نبدأ مرة ثانية السيشن.
تفضل أستاذ منى.
الوركشوب. سواء أعتقد مريت مرور سريع على الارتيكل. راح نبدأ مع الكواليتيتيف ستدي. عنوان الريسيرش Qualitative Study on Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction for Breast Cancer Patients. How women experience participating with the flu patient. هذا عنوان الارتيكل، ومهم جدا نقرأ العنوان في البداية إذا كان واضح أو لا، فيعطينا انطباع عن الارتيكل بشكل عام. واضح معكم التشيك ليست؟
واضح.
تمام. هنا في so in this checklist, I don't know what you preferred, Arabic or English, so راح أكون in between. Critical evaluation of research paper for the qualitative study. So this is a prepared checklist that will do the critical appraisal. Checklist جاهز يعمل لك التحليل النقدي للارتيكل. So usually in the qualitative studies we are looking for the PIO. The P is for the patient or population, I is for issue, and O is for the outcome. So the first question here, or the first concept, is what is the objectives of the research? From reading the research, have you found the P, the population? So we will go back to the research.
أستاذة نورة.
تفضل.
لا بس الصوت ينقطع ما أدري.
واضح الآن الصوت؟
إيه واضح. أنت كنت ميوت.
لا أنا عملت ميوت مش منقطع الصوت. So we are looking here for the population. Where we can find the population, it is mentioned here as you can see. واضح الارتيكل طالع معكم بالإشارة ولا لا؟
واضح.
طيب البوبوليشن هنا موجود في section materials and methods. طبعا هو indicating إنه البوبوليشن female with breast cancer were recruited at the outpatient oncology clinic on the Radboud University Medical Center and the hospital region state hospital. So هنا مذكور population, so we can take here that the population is mentioned and it's clear. The issue is the MPSR training. What do they mean by the MPSR training? It is mentioned here, as you can see, it is highlighted. The mindfulness-based stress reduction. So this is a technique that they are going to study, and it is clearly mentioned here in this article. And then the outcome of this article, they mentioned that it is appeared that the participants go through the process of participation where the fear of facing a flu patient, especially the palliative patient, is mostly apparent before they start of this implementation. Throughout the training, participants feel more connected with the supported by another. طبعا هنا يكون مذكور في الكونكلوجن غالبا في الاوتكمز او هنا في الريزلتس. واضح؟ طب النكست سكشن راح اسال البارتيسيبنت اللي معه الكريديبيليتي. who is the researcher؟ قدرتوا تطلعون who is the researcher، الباك جراوند او الريسيرش انترست. طيب. Credibility, who is the researcher. There is an explanation of the author's role في الصفحة رقم 1814. The authors are unaccounted for in this article. What is their role? يعني not mentioned that the specific role of this in this interview for the researcher. The potential bias as the author may be in a favor with this program implementation. So this can indicate a bias in this research. The positive في هذا research that they weren't involved in the running MPCR courses, so MPSR courses. So the researcher ما كان موجود في هذا الكورس. One person doing the analysis is not involved in the focus of the group. This is positive. هذا الاسم الانترفيور MS. Know this from the comparison of the focus group and the data analysis section. هذا بالنسبة للcredibility والمصداقية. Was the best method chosen? So الميثود هنا مذكورة بالتفصيل. كان في 5 focus group و 3 interviewers. So we can find it in this page. Are you with me now?
Yes.
واضح الصوت ولا لا؟
واضح واضح.
لأن مس إيمان تقول واضح. طيب how was the data collected؟ ممكن نشوف الارتيكل كيف تم جمع البيانات. هنا مذكورة طريقة الداتا كولكشن. لما أقرأ الريسيرش وأوصل للداتا كولكشن يكون مفصل فيها الداتا كولكشن بالتفصيل. فهذا يعتبر نقطة قوة لهذا الارتيكل إنه موضح فيها طريقة الداتا كولكشن، كم الديوريشن اوف تايم، طريقة الداتا كولكشن عن طريق الانترفيو والكويستشنز. طبعا هنا عادة يستخدمون الاوبن كويستشن، يسألوا الأول سؤال وبعدها البارتيسيبنت يبدأ يجاوب على السؤال. طيب بالنسبة لبقية التشيك ليست is the research reporting what is the participant actually said. The participant were shown a summary, not the full transcription. طبعا ما في transcription كامل للردود في هذه الارتيكل. direct quote were used. هنا في اقتباس مباشر في هذه الصفحة زي ما احنا شايفين سوا. هنا صفحة 1816. هنا حاطين الكوت مباشر للبارتيسيبنت. فهذا تعتبر من نقاط القوة، ولكن لم يتم ذكر بالضبط مين البارتيسيبنت اللي ذكر هذا الكوتيشن. لو ارتبط هذا بالتيبل اللي عندنا احنا شايفينه، طبعا this is a type of demographic data. If they have put a numbers for this demographic data and then connect it with the reply of the participant, it will give a stronger point to this article. So overall credibility is mixed. So we can say it is mixed. This article is in between. Transferability was the meaningful sample obtained. So everyone who participated in this study was invited to focus group, a large sample, but missing the dropouts. طبعا ما ذكروا هنا dropouts من participation. Participants recruited from 2 hospitals and via websites. Weighted towards the curative كان عددهم 37. palliative 3 في هنا بالتيبل رقم 1 صفحة 1816. هنا مبين الداتا. So yes, it is mentioned. Is there an in-depth or rich description of the setting sample? هل كان فيه معلومات كافية؟ sitting for the focus group, and some interviews was centered for the potential for bias. So بعض الانترفيورز كانوا من نفس البروجرام هذا، فممكن هنا في تحيز في الدراسة. Some interviewers by phone، طبعا بعضهم كان راح يعمل withdraw ولكن عملوا له الانترفيو by phone. ما وضح كم عدد اللي عملوا لهم المقابلة عن طريق الهاتف. So كل هذه المعلومات مذكورة هنا. Does the research cover the diverse viewpoints؟ هنا ما ذكرت الاختلافات في وجهات النظر بين كل participants. ذكر limitations في صفحة 818 recognize. So overall it can be transferred to those who have to complete the whole course. طبعا كل participant اللي أكمل الكورس ممكن هذا الدراسة تنطبق عليه. عدا ذلك لا. Dependability, how transparent is the audit trail? So can you follow the research step? Are the decision made transparent? Is the whole process explained in enough details? Or did the researcher keep a field of diary? في هذا الارticle, yes, you can follow the member of the checking and the coding. Content of the focus group and interviewer with the partners are not clear. Knowing the themes only، زي ما نلاحظ هنا ذكر فقط الثيمز اللي ركزت عليها الدراسة. Theme 1, Theme 2, Theme 3. So بالنسبة للثيمز هي واضحة. Was the peer scrutinizing the research? No, the research plan was mentioned, but a lot of peers in the data analysis, including one independent person to prevent the bias, transcript coded independently, and then reached the consensus within the author, another researcher. So overall, it is mixed also. Is the process of the analysis described in the details? Constant comparative method to develop the grounded theory. There are lots of details, so it is referenced. You can find them in the reference. And then the data analysis was done in page 1.5. So have any checks taken place in this article? Cross-checking of themes, reached consensus in the data analysis. It is not very clear in this article. Has the researcher reflected on possible bias? برضو نفس الشيء, no mention of the diary, so some reflection in limitations of this section. So overall, it is fairly clear step lack of there is lack of reflection. So overall, the article mixed, strong on some aspects of dependability and confirmability with a clear step and member checking. So هذا evaluation بالنسبة للارticle الأول. أي سؤال؟ ننتقل للارticle الآخر. Quantitative comparison of numerical and self-initiated weight loss program in people with pre-diabetes. طبعا في عنوان الدراسة موضح هنا إنها randomized control trial. برضو يعطي قوة للدراسة إنه موضح study design. So we'll take the checklist one by one. So the first concept is what is the objectives for the research. Patient, persons with pre-diabetic had an inclusion criteria. The intervention was the lifestyle modification program offered by the Weight Watchers International. See comparison, intervention and control group. The outcomes, changes in the body weight and the clinical outcomes are shown in the table 2. You can see here the article, table 2. So this is the one. And then the intervention group lost significantly more weight than the control at both the first screening was in 6 months and the second screening was in 12 months. So for the internal validity randomization, so it is randomized control trial, so it must be randomized. So the participants were randomly assigned to either an intervention or control in 1-to-1 ratio with the computer-generated randomization list with a block size of 4 using REDCap program. So REDCap is like a randomization program or a statistical program used for such studies. Comparability of the group, like as we can see in the table 1, page 953, gives a lot of the characteristic. The two groups were quite similar, only big differences were in the cholesterol and diastolic blood pressure. So the p-value here can under 5%. يفترض ال p-value 7/10. So as you can see here in this table, they mentioned here. So the total cholesterol and the diastolic blood pressure, there is a significant variation between them. So the blinding, did the participant or the researcher or the interviewers know where is the control and the intervention group or not? So no blinding of patient, but there couldn't be, as we can see in page 950, people giving the intervention couldn't be blinded. And then no mention if the researcher or those who are weighing the patients were blinded. So ما وضح في الدراسة هل الراندمايزيشن مشى على هذا الريسيرشر والبارتيسيبنت غير على غير علم وين الانترفنشن راح يكون في اي جروب او لا. So the equal treatment of the groups at the first until the intervention to page 950, 951, then the intervention were very different. Weight Watchers, 45 minutes activation, 3 weekly sessions, plus access to the app. Attrition, طبعاً هنا withdraw أو drop out from the article. So for the intervention group, 16% withdraw from the participation, and in the control group, 28 withdraw from this participation. You can find this in page 954. So big differences. So it could have done an effect to this result of this article. عمل discussion للlimitation في صفحة 954. So overall, yes, it appears to be reasonable. External validation for the assertion there were no dropout. Sampling approach, how they reach this sampling, screened in 8 community settings, but doesn't state how people were encountered to attend these settings. So sample size, it was clarified to 25 participants. وضحت الرسم البياني هنا. So من هذه الناحية الارتكل كامل. The sample size calculation is not mentioned. طريقة الكالكوليشن مو مفصلة. في بعض الكالكوليشن في صفحة 952 ولكن ليس بالتفصيل. exclusion and inclusion criteria. For setting out the criteria, lots of details موجودة في صفحة 950. They used appropriate tools measures for pre-diabetic ADA risk scanner. ADA is the American Diabetic Association. So overall, it is mixed. The sample is not good. The other aspects are better than sampling. So reliability of measurement tools. There is no mention the alpha value, the p-value, test and retest reliability. They weighted the participant in 6 months and then again in 12 months. Validity and measurement of tools in page 952. The number of established tools used and pilot, etc. are not needed. So overall, it is good and appropriate tool used. So the study can be compared with your game plan only sessions, not for the diabetes prevention program. Plan is discussed and at the beginning of this article. And here we can see in the acknowledgements of this article something that may indicate bias. The acknowledgement here, this study was funded by Weight Watcher. الانسترومنت أو الأداة اللي استخدموها هي funded من نفس الجروب. So this can indicate bias for this article. صار بالنسبة critical appraisal إذا في أي سؤال. إحنا كذا انتهينا. أستاذة سلوى.
أيوة.
إذا في أي سؤال من البارتيسيبانتس واضح يعني حبيت لو كان في مشاركة من البارتيسيبانتس، بس ما أدري إذا في مشكلة.
إذا في أي سؤال أو شيء ممكن نستخدم الشات.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
أهلين، هلا أستاذ ياسر.
أهلين، هلا والله. الله يعطيكم العافية. أول شيء والله أنا اليوم تعبان شوي ويعني وبس كنت حريص جدا على حضور هذه الورشة لأهمية الموضوع هذا شيء، ولأنه نورة تحديدا راح تقدمه، لأنه فعلا هي من الأشخاص اللي قادرة على الإضافة في موضوع مهم، وللأسف الحديث فيه يعني خلينا نقول قليل جدا. يعني نادرا تحصل ورشة عمل أو برنامج تدريبي أو يختص بمثل هذا النوع من المواضيع المهمة جدا. أنا بس عندي في كم نقطة كنت يعني وانتي تتكلمي قاعد أحطها في البال، إن شاء الله أني أتذكرها كلها. يعني النقطة الأولى في موضوع البيراميد حق الإيفيدنس، كان هو يعني خلينا نقول على 3 تصنيفات إذا تذكريني يا نورة. التصنيف الأول هو الإكسبرت أوبينيون، صح؟
Systematic reviews والميتا أناليسيس.
طيب يعني أنا اللي فهمت، ما أدري إذا فهمي صحيح أو لا، إنه كل ما ارتفعنا أكثر كل ما كان أفضل، صح؟
صحيح.
أيوة. طيب إحنا الآن في موضوع مشاريع التحسين في المستشفيات، أنا وفق هذا التصنيف أعتقد إنه إحنا لازلنا خلينا نقول رغم كل الجهود في عملية تنفيذ مشاريع تحسين وكذا، إلا أنه لازلنا في الخطوة الأولى، صح ولا لا؟
فعلا صحيح. تفضل كمل.
إيه أنا أقصد، أنا يهمني رأيك في هذا الموضوع. يعني هل تعتقدين إنه إحنا فعلا بحاجة إلى تبني مثل هذه المفاهيم العميقة عشان ننقل عملية improvement projects في المستشفيات إلى منطقة أوسع؟ يعني على الأقل لو نبدأ في كل سنة 5 مشاريع كبيرة يكون تخضع لمثل هذا النوع خلينا نقول العميق من التحليل، يعني نربطها، لأن احنا دائما في مشاريع التحسين نعتمد على الأوبينيونز إلى حد ما أو داتا بسيطة مجموعة في نفس المستشفى. ليش ما يكون نشوف المشهد كامل ونشوف إيش اللي قاعد، نعمل literature review ونشوف إيش اللي قاعد يصير في المستشفيات على مستوى العالم فيما يتعلق بالشيء المنشور، طبعا فيما يتعلق في هذه البروسيس، عشان قراراتنا في عملية التحسين تكون أكثر دقة وأكثر شمولية.
الريسيرش متقدم بشكل كبير عن الامبروفمنت بروجكتس في هذا النطاق، يعني في نطاق.
يا سلام.
فالأولد سكول كانت تقول إنه ريسيرش كتابة بحث publication أو ندرس الريسيرش بعدها نستمر في هذه الدراسات. الآن ممكن من 10 سنوات أو أقل الامبروفمنت بروجكتس صارت تاخذ مكان في evidence based practice أكثر من الريسيرش نفسه. يعني صاروا الباحثين يتبنون فكرة الامبروفمنت بروجكت أكثر من إنهم يتبنون فكرة البحث نفسها، وبعد كذا يجي الكلينيشن أو الفيزيشن ويطبقها على أرض الواقع. فلا، صار الريسيرشر هو اللي ياخذ الفكرة يتبناها كامبروفمنت بروجكت ويطبقها يعني بكامل السايكل. فبالعكس الاتجاه الآن جدا كبير على الامبروفمنت بروجكت فيما يتعلق بالإيفيدنس بيس. ألفت كتب كثيرة في هذا النطاق، يعني بالعشر سنوات الأخيرة عالميا في نشاط في هذا المجال. أتمنى طبعا أنه يكون عندنا هنا جهات تتبنى المشاريع التحسينية للأفراد، لأنهم أنا متأكدة أن في أفراد كثير في المستشفيات عندهم طاقة وعندهم أفكار وعندهم مشاريع حابين يتبنونها، لكن ما يدرون من وين يبدأون بالضبط. فمن هالمنطلق إن شاء الله راح يكون فيها اكتيفيشن لهذا المجال.
ممتاز، ممتاز جدا. النقطة الثانية، يعني ورشة العمل جميلة جدا، وهي قادتني لنقطة، يعني ليش ما يكون فيه خلينا نقول برنامج تدريبي متكامل، يعني مكون من 4-5 أيام ندخل فيه في التفاصيل، فهمتني؟ يعني ندخل فيه في تفاصيل الفاليديشن كيف ممكن تتم. يعني اليوم كانت إطلالة سريعة وجميلة ورائعة، عطتنا التصور العام للموضوع. أيوة بالضبط، أيوة بالضبط. لكن لو إحنا، يعني أنا أعتقد اللي عرض اليوم هو الكونكلوجن النهائي، بعد ما يكون الشخص تهيأ في الأساسيات، في الاسينشال سكيلز. بالضبط. فأنا أقترح عليك أنت على المستوى الشخصي إنه أنت تبدي تشتغلي على برنامج يكون متكامل من A to Z، ويكون هذا العرض اللي اليوم عرض خلينا نقول هو العرض اللي يكون في آخر يوم، يعني بعد ما الواحد يعرف التفاصيل في عملية الفاليديشن وكيفية تقييم الميثودز وتقييم الأشياء الكثيرة اللي أنت ذكرتيها اليوم على عجالة. لو كان في برنامج تدريبي سابق مفصل فيها كل هذه الأمور، وبعدين ننتقل يعني خلينا نقول بالمتدرب إلى خطوة متقدمة، أنه هو كيف يعمل خلينا نقول التقييم النقدي للمقال العلمي. فأنا أعتقد هذه فكرة بتكون جميلة، وأعتقد أنت خير من ممكن يقود مثل هذا النوع من المبادرات.
لا أبدا، الخير والبركة بالموجودين، والكل يعني عنده الإمكانية. المشكلة نحن في الكلينيكال فيلد يعني ننسى نبعد عن الريسيرش، ففي مفهوم وأعتقد إنه مفهوم خاطئ إنه الريسيرش والكونسبت تبع الريسيرش هي خاصة بالجهات الأكاديمية. فأنا أعتقد إنه من الضروري جدا إنه نبدأ مثل هذه النشاطات بشكل مفصل، والأفضل إنه تكون على لايف سيشنز، يعني in actual، يعني يكون في participation وفي تفاعل ما بين البارتيسيبانت والميدياتورز.
يعطيك ألف عافية، شكرا. وعلى فكرة المبادرة هذه، البرنامج إذا أنا بورطك فيه برضو بورط نادي الجودة وسلامة المرضى السعودي ومحمد الحجي معانا الآن، أنه ممكن تبني مثل هذا النوع من المبادرة ويكون البرنامج عن طريق النادي. الله يعطيك العافية.
بإذن الله يعطيك العافية.
شكرا أستاذة نورة على المعلومات الثرية، وإن شاء الله في انتظار المبادرة والمقترحة من الأستاذ ياسر. إذا في أي سؤال قبل لا نختم يمكن استخدام الشات.
أستاذة سلوى أبغى تداخل وتكرمتي.
تفضل أستاذ محمد.
الله يعطيك العافية. أولا أحب أشكر الأستاذة نورة على الورشة العمل الجميلة، والعذر منك إني ما قدرت أدخل في البداية، ولكن صراحة استمتعت في ورشة العمل والمعلومات جدا قيمة. ومثل ما تفضل زميلي ياسر، موضوع البحث موضوع يعني كبير، ونحتاج يعني إلى أيام وليس إلى ساعات فقط. البحث هو اللي قاد الدول إلى التقدم، وهو اللي كان مصدر المعرفة والعلم بحكم البحث والتمحيص في المعلومة واستخراج المودلز وقبول أو رفض بعض النظريات. كل هذه للأسف يعني في مجالاتنا كثيرة وليس فقط الصحية ينقصها الكثير من بقولها بالإنجليزي اللي هو enrichment في الفيلد. احنا نتمنى إن شاء الله بإذن الله تعالى يكون فيه لقاءات إن شاء الله قادمة. وفكرة الأخ ياسر بالعكس، هي إذا أعطاه فكرة أنا نعطيه إحنا عرض، إحنا نعرض للجميع إن شاء الله بإذن الله تعالى. كل المنضمين اللي اليوم معنا إن شاء الله راح يكون لهم إن شاء الله الأولوية في التسجيل في الدورات القادمة، ولكن نحتاج إلى بلورة هذه ورشة العمل بحيث أن تكون متكاملة وفيها سكوب. يعني أنا يهمني مثلا تكون الأبحاث حتى نتناقش فيها ما تكون مثلا خارج سكوب المتقدمين. نتكلم عن أبحاث متخصصة في مجال الجودة، سلامة المرضى، إدارة المخاطر، إدارة الأداء. وأعتقد الآن يعني ما شاء الله الكثير من الباحثين في مجال جودة سلامة المرضى ركزوا على الكيس ريبورتس، ويمكن أغفلوا جانب الريسيرش ميثود. ولكن احنا يعني كنادي الجودة احنا طبعا نادي هو نادي الجميع، والأفكار تأتي من الجميع، وإحنا فقط نعمل تمكين وإنيبل للجميع على أساس إنهم يلتقون. وهذا السلوغان تبعنا اللي هو together we learn from each others. فالله يعطيك العافية أستاذة نورة، وألف شكر لك، وألف شكر على الحضور ما شاء الله تبارك الله، وعلى مشاركتهم وعلى تفاعلهم. الله يعطيهم العافية، ونعذرهم يمكن على أساس الموضوع الأونلاين أحيانا ما يكون فيه تفاعل كثر ما هو فيزيكال، ولكن إن شاء الله نوعدكم إن شاء الله في الأيام القادمة بإذن الله تعالى يكون إن شاء الله حضورنا فيزيكال وإن بيرسون بإذن الله تعالى. شكرا لك.
الله يعطيك العافية أستاذ محمد، ووجودك اليوم إضافة لهذه الورشة وإضافة لي شخصيا. بإذن الله نتبنى المبادرة وحاضرين إن شاء الله، لأنه الكواليتي والريسيرش مكملين البعض، فمن الضروري جدا أن نغطي كل الجانبين بالنسبة للكواليتي والسيفتي والبيشنت ادهيرنس، للريسيرش نكون up to date مع latest international studies. يعطيك العافية وشكرا على تواجدك.
شكرا أستاذ محمد، شكرا أستاذة نورة، يعطيكم العافية. حضورنا الكريم إن شاء الله غدا معكم صباحا راح نكون بورشة القيادة الموقفية في تحسين أنظمة الجودة، تقديم الأستاذ عبد العزيز المطيري، ثم نختم مؤتمرنا بورشة إدارة المخاطر، تقديم الأستاذ فهد الفريدي. شكرا لحضوركم وحسن استماعكم، إلى اللقاء.
شكرا.